What if everything you thought you knew was just the beginning? What if reality isn't what it seems and consciousness stretches far beyond the limits of our understanding? Join us as we journey into the unknown, seeking truth, wisdom, and connection beyond the veil. Welcome to Beyond Transcendence, where the mysteries of the universe unfold, one conversation at a time. Hello again. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Transcendence. I'm your host, as always, Josh Rutledge. And this is going to be another episode without our good friend, Deb Shakti. We've actually had a conversation lately, and Deb's just has a lot of stuff going on. And so not able to give this podcast the attention and dedication that she feels that it deserves. And so I'm going to continue on with just me. And in the future, there may be episodes where she's able to be on as maybe a guest host, or I may have other people on as well for guest appearances. But for the most part, it's going to be me. And I've decided, because of the, kind of feedback that I got after the episode of the Dowsing Rods last time, as well as the feedback from Fu, who came through and talked to us on the Dowsing Rods from last time, that I'm just going to continue these episodes with being mainly that kind of, area of focus, looking at using and getting information through dowsing rods. Something that I realized, though, is that the dowsing rods kind of serve as like a feedback loop or confirmation of the information that I'm getting. Because as you notice, I ask questions that are not really necessarily in a part of a normal conversation. I ask those questions because I intuit the answers or the information that I'm supposed to be asking for confirmation of, and then we ask for that confirmation on the rods. So bottom line, this episode of Beyond Transcendence and future episodes will likely be myself doing dowsing rod sessions, sprinkled in with a couple of guest appearances here and there from various folks, as well as our good friend Deb's Shakti. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
We interrupt this broadcast for a special announcement.
If you're anything like me, then you find this dowsing rod stuff very interesting. And maybe you're thinking, I'll go out and get myself my own rods and I'll see what I get. And I think that's okay. I think you should experiment. But I also think you should make sure that you're protected when doing so. I mean, you are a conduit for the energy that's going to flow through and affect the rods. And so you want to make sure that in being that conduit, that you've grounded yourself, that you've shielded yourself so that you don't become impacted by these energy flows in a negative way. You don't have a negative experience. I think in order to do that, there's a great book. It's called The Art of Psychic Protection. If you go to my website, ourmysticjourneys.com, that's OUR, mysticjourneys.com/links, there's a link in there to Amazon to purchase that book. There's also a link on that website to purchase the same set of dowsing rods that I use in my sessions. If, though, you decide that you want to leave the dowsing up to me, you can also book a session with me on my website as well, ourmysticjourneys.com. Check out the book, check out the dowsing rods. All right, let's get back into the action. Let's see. I've kind of been wanting to explore the idea of neurodivergent humans. I don't know if there are neurodivergent other animals or not, but kind of along within the same vein of the last episode around, human origins and how we came to be and why we're here. And so I'm going to ask, is there anybody that we can speak with, Fu or someone else, that can give us information or answers as it relates to this topic? And the rods crossed for yes. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, is this Fu that we're speaking with? And again, they crossed for yes. Okay. Well, welcome back, Fu. Welcome back to the show. like I gave in the previous episode, Fu is one of my guides. He resides inside the Sandia Mountains in New Mexico. And he comes through for me a lot. I do some channeling stuff as well, and a lot of times Fu will come through there, whatever I'm channeling. And so, yeah, welcome to the show. Great to have you back. And they cross for yes again. So I guess that means he's glad to be here. Okay. So, Fu, something that I am what science would deem neurodivergent because I have ADHD. I have others in my family that are neurodivergent because everything from autism to ADHD, to anxiety, to all kinds of other forms of whatever neurodivergence would be kind of communicated as. One of the things that I've been really thinking about, though, over the last probably 6 months or so, is that these things, although in today's society are looked at as being a negative, were not meant to be a negative in the kind of formation of humanity. Is that correct? And the rods did cross for yes. And so when we think about neurodivergent people and the skill sets that they often have, and that they look at the world differently, that way that they look at the world is not conducive in this mode of acquisition of wealth and property. But if we were to look back at the true purpose or the true intention for human life on the earth, I think we talked about this in the last episode, but if not, it's that true intention being that we are supposed to be stewards of the earth and its inhabitants. Then the skills that the ability to look at things differently, to see patterns, to potentially see discrepancies in the rhythm and pattern of the earth would be beneficial skills to have as someone would be identified as neurodivergent. Is that correct, Fu? And again, the rods cross for yes, and that was a quick cross for yes. So I think Fu is basically 100% agreement with that statement. And so I wondered then if, because of how humans are treating the earth, are the number of people who are being diagnosed with neurodivergence symptoms or conditions, is that because the earth is crying out for help and more of us are being awoken to those cries from the earth? Is that correct? And again, the rods quickly crossed for yes. So we could take the information or the skills that we have as neurodivergent individuals, and we can employ those to help humanity figure out how to live in harmony with the earth instead of the continual kind of acquisition of wealth that has put us in this position that we are in now. Is that correct? And again, the rods cross for yes. Big cross on that one. So some of those areas that may be beneficial for us is, as we think about our relationship and role with the earth, is to think of the earth as a sentient being, as being inhabited by a soul. Is that correct? Again, the rods crossed for yes. And so if we look at people who are neurodivergent, they are also often very empathic individuals. They are sympathetic to other people's needs and plight. And so that all weighs into and goes into being able to respond to and sense the mood and needs of the earth and all of its inhabitants, not just other humans. Is that correct? And again, the rods crossed for yes. So as we think about that, anyone who's listening, would you have been, or have you been classified as being neurodivergent? And if you have, do you find that you feel the earth when it's in pain? Do you feel when it is hurting? Do you sense the other life around you and know when it is hurting? Perhaps maybe then the neurodivergences that we've been diagnosed with are not something that we should look at as a negative. It is not something that we should look at as something that needs to be suppressed, but instead they are skill sets that need to be harnessed and that need to be expressed and make use of in some way to help us figure out ways to allow humans to be comfortable, even if that means we need to move past the idea of the continued shoot, I totally blanked on the word, acquisition of wealth, and instead look at how we can live in harmony with each other as well as the earth. The Rods did a big cross for yes there, so I think that foo is, and in fact they're kind of wiggling back and forth, crossing yes or no. It usually means that it's an exuberant yes. So foo is really hoping that we can do that. And so those skills that we have, the ability to be sympathetic to others' needs, to be empathetic with others, to put ourselves in the position of others and understand maybe what they're going through and maybe think of some ways to help them. That's the type of thinking that our world needs right now in order for us to move past this way of living that we've been in for so long and instead look to move forward into the future. That the people who are autistic or ADHD or other neurodivergent diagnoses are really the people who are meant to carry humanity forward into a future where we live harmoniously with the earth. Is that correct? And again, the Rods crossed for yes. A big exuberant cross for yes. And so when we think about then how we can do that, I wonder if anybody who's listening or watching this on YouTube has any ideas about how we can better ourselves, humanity, and our relationship with the earth. Something maybe that would be better received by the masses. I think that if we go to people and say, in order for us to live more harmoniously with the earth, we have to stop driving cars. That, although that may be a true statement, it doesn't allow, I think, the masses to accept that that is a necessary need, and instead would reject quickly the idea that we need to stop driving cars. So perhaps there's a better way of looking at it. Is there an energy that would allow us to still be mobile, that is to say, to get from one place to the other, but does not add to the pollution that cars and other automobiles contribute to the earth? And the Rods cross for yes, so that energy does exist. It's just waiting for someone to discover it. And when that someone discovers it, if they shift beyond the acquisition of wealth mentality and instead share it freely with others so that they can replicate that technology, all with the hopes that we won't use it to get rich, right? But we'll use it to make sure that we better humanity and better the society that we hope to achieve. And again, the Rods crossed for yes. So, Fu, can I ask, is there someone who's listening to this right now, whether this be the day that it comes out or months or years later, someone who's listening to this right now, do they have the ability, or have they even been thinking about the energy that could be used to replace automobiles? And the Rods crossed for yes. So again, I don't know when this person is watching this, but you know who you are, and you've had ideas about how you can replace automobiles and allow humans to still be mobile and get from places to places, but that doesn't contribute to the overall pollution of the planet. Wow. I mean, that's some almost future, I don't know. I guess it is future because I'm recording this now and then I'll be peeking it out later. But someone watching this, I don't know when or where you're watching it, but you've got the ideas necessary that would revolutionize the way we think about transportation. Fu, I just got to know for myself, am I that person? So the rods did uncross for no. So it's not me. It's someone else who's watching this that has those ideas that will be able to revolutionize transportation for humanity. And again, the rods cross for yes. So wherever you are, whoever you happen to be, I hope that this encourages you to do the work that you've been thinking about doing. And even if you don't have the scientific or the mathematics or the engineering background, to experiment, to prototype, to ask people who you might know who has those backgrounds. Not to ask them about the feasibility of it, because often the people that we ask about the feasibility of breakthroughs are unable to think about the possibility of that breakthrough. But maybe just think about how to ask them for, is there some, can they help you prototype something? Can they help you with an engineering process? Can they help you with the math needed to work something out? So yeah, and do so, I think, with the idea that you're doing it to help all of humanity, not just to enrich yourself. And again, the rods went kind of wild and crazy for yes. So I really want to make sure that we're moving forward as a species and not constantly stuck in the past. So with that being said, unfortunately, at least in the United States, and I think elsewhere around the world, there may be a few of these as well, that we're not thinking about that mentality. We're not thinking about how to grow as a population, how to grow as a species. Are there people who are in political power now who do think about how to advance us as a species, that will be able to put the powerful nations of the world in a place to be able to take advantage of these new technologies that are going to be developed? And the rods crossed for yes. I get the feeling that the people that are in this space that will be able to make the change, they're presently maybe in their, let's say, 20s to 40s. Is that correct? And again, the rods stay crossed for yes. But I think that the newer generations too, the ones that are in, their 10s or not quite 20, that they have the possibility and prospect to make significant changes in the world as well. Is that correct? And again, the rods cross for yes. And what about people who are older than 40? I'm sure that there are a smattering here or there that still have the want and the desire to make the world a better place. And again, the rods are kind of exuberantly crossing for yes. But are those people in power right now to be able to make that change? And the rods uncrossed for no. And so the people who are of that older age, they want to make a difference, but they just, for some reason, because the people pushing against them, they don't have the ability to do so. Is that correct? And the rods crossed for yes. So should we continue to support those individuals, or should we look to elect into positions of political power those who are, currently like in their 20s, 30s, early 40s? So it's a big yes, but let me ask two questions there. So let me back it up. Should we continue to support the people who are older, who are not going to be able to make the change, but are still in positions of power and want to make the change? Again, the rods are still exuberantly reporting yes. And I think that's because they have the ability to lay the groundwork for what future generations will step in and take hold of and really advance to the point of making a significant difference. Is that correct? And again, big crosses for yes. Big crosses for yes. Thank you. So we've talked about, again, the intent of humans as being the stewards of the earth. Neurodivergence is not being a hindrance, but almost an evolution of human capacity for compassion and love and achievement. Is there anywhere else that we want to go within this vein of conversation? And the answer was yes. Okay. So let me just kind of take a moment and see what comes to me. Spiritual development as well. That these people who are neurodivergent or in this younger age group, they have a greater comprehension for spirituality beyond the constraints of religion. Is that correct? And again, the rods cross for yes. That spirituality is a state of being, whereas religion is a formal instruction booklet, if you will, on how to apply that spirituality. Would that be correct? Yes. And so the only way for us to move beyond is to get out of the rigidness of religion and instead embrace the adaptability of spirituality. Is that correct? And again, the rods crossed for yes. And so those individuals who are currently, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe teens, even their 50s, those people are the ones that are really gaining that spirituality understanding and moving beyond the limitations that religion places on them. Again, the rods cross for yes. And so those are the individuals. That's the direction that we really need to move in, is to move beyond religion and look at spirituality and how it affects us and how it impacts us. Is that correct? And again, the rods cross for yes. Okay. Is there other things within this vein that we need to look at? And the rods uncross for no. Okay. Is there anything further in this, we'll call it transmission, that needs to be said? And the rods stayed uncrossed for no. Okay. And just to test to make sure you're there, can you cross the rods again? And the rods did cross when I asked them to. Okay. Well, thank you, Fu, for coming and spending some time with us here today. Thank you for anyone who watched this episode. And again, someone who watched it has the ideas needed in order for them to transform the way we think about transportation. That's exciting. That's really exciting. So for those that are watching or listening, I do these sessions for the show, but I also do private dowsing sessions for anybody who's interested in having one done. And you can go to that's OUR, mysticjourneys.com. And on there, you can book a private dowsing session with me. And we'll go through and see what information or answers that the universe or your guides have. And the rods crossed a big exuberant yes again. So someone watching or listening, I think the rods are indicating that this might be something that you've been looking for, and booking a session with me would help you gain a greater understanding. And again, the rods are big exuberant yes on that. So, and then if you go to that same website /links, there's, as mentioned before, a link for the book, The Art of Psychic Protection, as well as the actual rods that I use when doing my dowsing sessions, and a link there to book a session with me if you feel so inclined. Thank you again for watching or listening to Beyond Transcendence. As always, I'm your host, Josh Rutledge, and today our co-host was Fu. And until we meet again.